Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Tech Your Business podcasts. Today on the show, we have a guest. I'm sure we've had a lot of guests of recent, this won't be a new thing to you. So we have a guest, and the guest has my name too. So our guest today is Pete Sena. Pete Sena is the founder of Digital Surgeons, which is a brand experience consultancy. And today, Christina will be with us on the Tech Your Business show today to talk about different things that I'm sure would be useful in your business. So welcome to the show, Pete.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. So I'm a creative entrepreneur. So essentially, I've been building businesses. I've built service businesses, product businesses, and most recently now I focus on helping business leaders really grow and transform their businesses. And I would say that's a lot of buzzwords. And there's probably a lot of people who are like, well, why should I listen to you? That's the first thing that's in everybody's mind. And what I would say is I started a company in my college dorm room. I built it up into a national company. And I've gone on now to start and invest in a number of different companies. And really, my superpower is storytelling. How do I tell a great story to help people find the right customer for their business, tell the right story that's going to help their customer come to them, stay with them, and continue to be with them. And ultimately, what that means is we're innovating on how people tell their stories, where people tell their stories. So, the buzzwords in the industry are words like branding and marketing and innovation and all that kind of stuff. But really, at the end of the day, I just help people. I'm kind of like an overpaid matchmaker between businesses and their customers, I think, in a big way. And that's really what I do.
Interesting. So what's inspired you to start your branding and marketing agency while we're still in college?
So, I mean, great question. So I think at the time I didn't know any better, right? So what I always tell people is I just wanted to make really cool shit for the internet. I've got a really big passion for design and technology. And I just think it's something that is a really powerful thing. It's, some people are artists and their canvas is, a paintbrush or Photoshop or whatever it is. Some people are artists and they make music. For me, I like to express myself with design and with technology. When I combine those things together, I realized I could actually help people. I could help people grow their businesses, make their visions come true. So I think just from an early age, I started working with a lot of different business owners and realizing that things that were easy for me to do didn't come so easy to them. And I could do a couple things, I could write some code on a keyboard, or I could, put some pixels around and put them on the internet. Now, all of a sudden, watching a local business kind of, have a line full of customers in front of their door. And then I was like, wow, this is pretty powerful. And then, started learning about online advertising and how to do different ads and that sort of thing. And then before you know it, just watch the growth of it. So I think ultimately why I went on to go and start it, really is because what I wanted to create didn't exist. And I think like most entrepreneurs, they see a problem in the world, or they see themselves in a scenario that doesn't exist for them, and they go and they create the opportunity. So that's what I did is I went out, created the opportunity, which happened to just happen while I was still in college. And, here I am today, 20 plus years later. We've built a number of different companies, and, I still love what I do. So I think it's really important to understand where you want to be and what you want to do. And it's really hard to discover that. And the only way to discover that is by just trying different things. And that's ultimately what I did and how I got to where I'm at today. And, I wouldn't change it because there's a lot of mistakes, but I think that mistakes are what make the journey.
Really true. So you said earlier that your superpower is storytelling. So can you go a bit deeper on that? Tell us how that is.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think, first thing that audience wants to know about me is I was a super introvert. So I was a very shy kid. And as a result of it, had to listen a lot, had to pay attention a lot. And, as a student, as a kind of child of the 80s, what that meant is watching a lot of movies, watching a lot of TV, being a student of internet culture, and you listen a lot and you watch sort of language patterns and you watch experiences, and you see different people and how they've achieved their success. So what I always say to people is, if you want to be successful, you have to first define what success means to you. And then ultimately you have to sort of model or mirror and look at other people on that you deem successful, because what I see as success might be very different than what you see as success, Peter, versus what your audience might see as success. Right. So ultimately, when I say storytelling is my superpower, what I mean by that is, how can I figure out what is the best context or the best way to express a piece of information, right? So nowadays, like if I'm on TikTok, it's going to be, you know, a fast hook and a fast thing that's going to pull the audience in. If it's on a billboard, there's going to be a different type of context. So, you know, there's a famous message that some guy named Marshall, I think it was Marshall McLuhan said, which he basically said, the medium is the message. And ultimately what that means is you have to understand, if we're sitting around a campfire right now, what makes a great story might be very, very different than if you're on TikTok, might be very, very different than what's, you know, happening when you're purchasing something and the email that you get after the fact. So ultimately the medium is the message. And I think that as someone who's been a digital native my whole life, being able to understand how these platforms work and how and where to tell those stories in a way that's right for the audience is ultimately what's exciting. But now that I've had 20 years experience, I can look back and go, oh, wow, you know what? Stories have a lot of the same things in common. It's just how we express those stories has changed over time as technology's evolved. So I hope that answers the question. I think that like, that's the sort of jargon-free version of it. I mean, I can get into like all the jargon if it's helpful for you or the group, but
Interesting. Storytelling. And you said something that was really that caught me, which is tailoring the message to the media, like the TikTok or the fast hooks and everything. And that's one thing we really find difficult as business owners, because at the end of the day, we create one piece of content and we just post the same thing everywhere and hope it works out. And hope it works out. So for business owners working with different platforms, what are some tips you have, especially with the popular platforms we have today? What are some tips you have on tailoring their content or their message to that platform? You already gave us one for TikTok.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a very, very simple framework that I use with interns, and I use the same framework with CEOs of, you know, Fortune 500 companies. And I work with both, right, on a regular basis. And that framework is called ACT. And the reason I call it ACT is it's easy to remember, ACT, but also like what we're trying to do as storytellers, marketers, professionals, business owners is we're trying to get people to take an action. We're trying to get them to act. And for you as a business owner, it might be getting someone to buy your product. It might be getting someone to engage with you in some particular way. But at the end of the day, most businesses exist because they want to acquire customers, keep customers, and get people to buy things, right? So I'm coming at it through a capitalist lens. I want to just sort of frame that for the audience here. So just understand the context, right? So that being said, ACT, what does it stand for? So first, you got to know who your audience is, right? The A in audience is, who are you specifically talking to, right? The second thing is C, is what are you communicating? What is the message that ultimately that audience is looking to hear or see? And then last but not least, the T is sort of the trigger or the touch point. So just to give a very specific example, if I'm a local pizzeria in a small town, right? Obviously, people can order from Domino's or they could order from Pizza Hut, these sort of large chains to get pizza. So why would I want my local pizzeria to actually advertise and be able to compete with those big sort of corporate players, right? Well, for one, if I know that my audience is people who are looking for a casual Friday night with their friends, and I know that my audience, primarily just from people that are coming in and buying my pizza, tend to be college kids, or let's just use college kids as an example. So college kids right now, they're looking for, you know, low cost, cheap food that they can have when they're out drinking with their friends or whatever. Well, that might not be the right audience for me, right? Because if I'm a local pizzeria and I source my local ingredients and I have a more premium, you know, set of ingredients, it's going to be really hard for me to compete with Pizza Hut or Domino's, who have these incredible apps and incredible infrastructure and systems. And realistically, that college person, and again, I've been that college kid, right, is we want something that's fast, that's cheap and easy, which means that I'm probably going to go with the Domino's app because I can push a button and I can have the pizza tracker and it shows up in my dorm room or whatever it is. So my audience is probably not the broke college kid, right? My audience might be the local family of four who primarily shops at, you know, shops only local, right? So then my ad might be like, you know, we're a local pizzeria here in New Haven. You know, we love to engage with our local community. Maybe there's some pictures of people in the local community because it's a small area that I might know of. So if my audience is that, first thing in ACT is knowing your audience, right? Because if you go after the wrong audience, no matter what you say or do, you're probably going to fail, right? So that's one, know your audience. The second thing is, what are you communicating, right? So in the case of what I just said, if I'm more expensive and I'm more of a local pizzeria, best way for me to compete is to compete on what makes me different and better, which is the local community aspect, maybe the engagement or the relationship I have with customers. Maybe it's a family-owned business so that everyone knows everybody, kind of like the Cheers local bar kind of analogy. So that's what I'm communicating. And then the trigger or the touch point is maybe it's an offer. Maybe it's like every 10th pizza, you get X amount of dollars off. So I use that as like a very basic example because I think what most people get wrong from small businesses all the way up to the global companies I work with is they often don't communicate to the right audience. And when you don't know your audience, your audience is not 25 to 45-year-old people in America, right? That's not an audience, right? That's like sort of a high level cohort. You gotta get really specific because when you know the real people you're talking to, then you can know what to communicate to them. And then you can know how to move them through the journey. And I don't like to say funnel, I say journey because I think that people don't follow journeys in a linear way anymore. It's not, I don't think they ever did, but I think that it's understanding when someone needs you or wants you, how do you make sure that you show up? But more importantly, when they don't need you or want you, how do you make sure that you're continuing to show up? And that's what I tell a lot of people. And again, you can apply that to branding, advertising, marketing, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, it's just good business. So that's what I call it the ACT framework. It's super simple: audience, communication, trigger, touch point. And what I mean by trigger touch point is like, what's the thing that is going to pull them through? So that trigger touch point might be an Instagram ad, might be a TikTok ad of somebody that's in the local community that love their pizza. That's, again, you walk in, let's say Peter walks in and you come in every other Friday to pick up a pizza, right? So I might just put my phone on and record you and be like, Peter, what's going on? So great to see you again. If I'm the owner of the business, I come out in my, my white chef coat, whatever. And I say, Peter, good to see you. And I got my selfie video and you're like, oh, it's so good to see you, Pete. Like, I'm so excited for my meat lovers pizza or whatever the hell it is. Now I get that video and I'm like, if you could just post that, that'd be really cool. So now you post that in your Instagram story. I get that content from you. And now everyone's liking that content. So now if I just turn that piece of content into an ad, right? That ad, that audience that I'm going after is people like you, right? Because you're in the local community. What I'm communicating is social proof. You're super happy. And then that trigger, the touch point is like, grab an offer, sign up for a text alert, whatever it is. So I like to keep it simple because I think that marketers, a lot of people I work with are like MBAs and like, PhDs, and they're all like fancy, like well-educated folk. And I think the problem with that is like, we sort of get high off our own supply sometimes. Right. And it's like, all right, like, let's use words like, we need to make sure that our CAC to lifetime value ratio is the right metric, or we need to make sure that like our, last touch attribution model is directly equivalent to our ability to acquire customers. And it's like, I know all that shit, but at the end of the day, like, the more I try to sound smart for the sake of sounding smart, the more that I'm just going to confuse people. So I hope that answers the question, but like, that's why I just like to say storytelling, because when I say branding or marketing or customer acquisition, it comes with all that extra drama. And I just like to keep shit drama free.
Yeah. And that's one thing I think about when working with customers too, because when you bring up those big words, there's always that pause, even though it's not physical, it's mental, to process, so what does this mean, to break it down, and they probably lose the attention they have when you. So most times I try to, and that's even the essence of this show, trying to break down all these tech big terms to jargon, and I really like the way you're doing it. Well, which brings me to another thing you said, which is being a matchmaker between businesses and their customers. Because one thing I've noticed, especially people starting their businesses, a lot of people start their business, but they are not really sure who is the best audience or who will be the best fit for this thing they're starting. So for a business owner in this situation, sometimes even bigger businesses, they start their businesses, they grow, but they are selling to the wrong crowd, because at the end of the day, if they sell to the right people, they're going to make more money, they're going to make more sales, and they're going to have a lot less resistance. So since you brought up that being the matchmaker between businesses and their customers, how does a business know better who is the right client for their products?
Yeah. So in life, I believe that the best thing for us to know is ourselves, right? Because when we know ourselves, that self-awareness is super important, right? So if you're a business owner or you work at a business or a brand leader, wherever you work, you got to know your product. You got to know, what is my product? What is my service? And most importantly, what is the thing that I exist to do, right? So you could pick a product and we can sort of do one real time live together right now, but if you want, or I can sort of just break it down like more generally. What's better for you?
I think what do they call it? A specific product, a specific example would help.
Cool. So pick a product that we might both know about or in your audience might know about.
Mm, let's talk about sofas.
Like a sofa, like a couch.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. I love that. I actually work with a large furniture brand, so I know that space very well. So the first thing they have to understand is, why is someone buying a sofa, right? So are they buying a sofa to replace an existing sofa? So the first thing you have to understand is, I don't like to think in terms of features and benefits. I like to think in terms of the emotional journey, right? So people always say like, there's the emotional side of why you buy something, and then there's the rational side of why you buy something, right? So I'll use the concept of a sofa, right? So the first thing I want to understand is, what type of sofa are we selling, right? So really, like, I'll just use my client Lovesac as an example, right? So Lovesac is a very expensive sofa. They call it a Sactional. We don't call it sofa because it's a special type of product that's very configurable. One of the things that we know is that the people that want to purchase our products purchase them because of the quality of fabrics that we use. They purchase them because they know that it's a more sort of tech influenced audience, because many of our products have our Stealth Tech product has, built-in speakers and sound. It's got a cell phone charger that comes with it. It can be configurable. So there's all these different reasons. So the first thing you have to understand is your audience, right? Like, what makes your product different? Well, our product's different because you can configure it in a number of different ways, right? We know that our customer changes their environment a lot, right? They rearrange their rooms, they change things. They're sort of moving and shifting a lot, right? So that configurability makes it worth more money if I'm charging, 30 or 40% more for my sofa than another company's sofa, as an example, right? What we also know is that people spill shit, right? And like, I've got a 2-year-old son, like, you can't have nice things anymore. He spills stuff, he's putting stuff everywhere. What's great about Lovesac is that they have slip covers. The slip covers come off, they're washable, but they still look great, right? So now, washable, changeable slip covers if I want to change the fabric. So the configurability, the customization is really there for me. And as that tech savvy, dad, as an example, I'm going to spend more for a piece of furniture that has the versatility I want. Obviously, it comes with comfort. Obviously, it comes with the style that I want, right? These are all the features and benefits. But I think in the case of what you said, now I can start to go down and understand more about what makes my product different and better. And then what is the transformation ultimately that happens for my audience, right? So if I was going to go and make a social ad about that, just to kind of break down the ingredients, right? First, I'm going to try to create something that hooks you, right? So that upfront hook is going to be important. We know on TikTok or Instagram, right? I'm going to show you the problem, right? So maybe the hook would be like showing someone spilling a wine glass on the couch. I'm like, shit, you're all upset. So now you want to stick around. I got you with the hook. The problem I just showed you is you spilled something on your couch. You're like, oh man, now I got to get a new couch. No, not with Lovesac. Now I'm building you up, right? So now I'm agitating you. I'm lifting you up. I'm bringing you in. Now I drop some information on the product. Well, what if it didn't have to be this way? What if you could just pop this off and wash it? Now I'm showing you doing it. And I'm showing you, Peter, actually, a real person, not just an actor, right? Yeah. So now I'm showing you doing it. Now I introduce a feature. Now I introduce a benefit. Now I show you one of the use cases. So now I just showed you one, which is you can wash it, right? Now I might also show you another use case where you can configure it in a couple different ways for your home layout, right? Like, you want the TV on this side. Now you're going to move the TV this side. So your couch changes up, right? Now I just showed you a use case, right? Now I show you an end result, which is a comfortable, exciting thing. Maybe you're watching the game on TV. Maybe you're playing a video game, right? End result. And now I show some social proof, or UGC. Like, I'm showing some social proof, like, 100 more playoff games experience with Lovesac, right? And then I'm wrapping it back up. And then I'm going to give you some kind of a call to action, right? Which is see more on lovesac.com or do more here. So what you notice I just did there is I just gave you all the ingredients of a social ad. And that's how we tell stories. We break it down in terms of a framework, right? So it's, what's that hook? What's that problem statement? How do I like elevate or agitate that problem? You're engaged at that point. I haven't tried to sell you anything yet. I'm just pulling you through in a way that is native to Instagram or whatever your medium is, right? Remember our communication and our trigger and touch point, back to ACT before, going right back to that thing. So that's how I would do that. So in that process, Peter, I just did a couple things in front of you in the audience here, right? One, I figured out how to define who my audience is, because I know what makes my product different and better. Very important to know different and better. Second thing is, once I know who my audience is, I know what they want. because the more you know about your audience, the more you know about the pain points that they're experiencing in their life.
Sure.
And then from there, you know what to communicate. And that communication then helps you to create the ingredients to make your story. And then once you understand the specific trigger or tactic, right, in this case, an Instagram story or TikTok, using that as an example, then you understand the format. Now, if I did that same exact thing with you, Peter, and you said, hey, all right, Pete, what about a long form YouTube video? Okay, let's do the same thing again, right?
Okay.
So long-term YouTube video, who's my audience? My audience is new parents that like nice things and they like configurability in their home, right? So if they like configurability, they're probably searching for a lot of different style changes. So how to rearrange my room, feng shui, all these different things. So now they go on YouTube and they're searching and they find my video. Maybe it's a paid ad, maybe it's just a video, right? So they discover my video. First thing I got to do is I got to catch their attention, right? So in the case of YouTube, I got to hook you, right? In this video, I'm going to show you all the different ways you can move your couch to set your house up for the best playoff games with your friends in NFL. Made that up off the top of my head, just like the other thing, right? Now I've got my hook, because notice the hook is different because YouTube, in this video I'm going to show you, is a very popular hook in YouTube, right? It's that's how Mr. Beast does it. That's how a lot of other people do it, right? Showing you what you're going to get. Now in YouTube, maybe I'm going to go with a longer form content, right? Maybe I'm going to do a 4-minute video on the 100 different ways I can rearrange this couch, right? What's different about my couch is I can rearrange it 100 ways versus your couch, Peter. If you don't buy my couch, oh, you just get one couch. You can't, oh man, you can't fit it here. So now I'm showing you the pain point, right? Can't fit this couch. So now I show a generic couch versus my couch. Whose couch do you want more, right? Now in YouTube, same thing, right? Still showing you the problem, still agitating and kind of pissing you off a little bit, right? Making it real for you. You don't have a lot of space in your apartment, whatever it is. Then I'm showing you my features. Then I'm showing you my benefits and how it can apply for you. But on YouTube, my pacing might be different, right? I think that there's misconception right now that people think that everyone has no attention spans. So if people don't have attention spans, why is it that they spend 6 hours a day on TikTok? Is it because TikTok's just like so addicting? Yeah, but it's not that people don't have attention spans. It's people don't have attention spans for shitty content. So as storytellers, what we have to do is we got to raise the bar for the content that we create, because at the end of the day, whether we're making a YouTube ad, an Instagram post, or a blog article, we got to understand who our audience is, what we're communicating to them, what that message is, and what's remember, the medium's the message, right? If I try to do a long form blog article and a YouTube video, people are going to bounce in 1 second. They're going to see right through that bullshit. So that's just, again, breaking it down into some simple systems. I like to think of storytelling like Lego blocks, right? If I give you 5 Lego blocks and I give my son 5 Lego blocks and I give me 5 Lego blocks, we might build a bunch of different things. So I like to think of really simple ingredients laddering up to configurability and customization. So I hope that answers the question for you in a real-time format.
Yeah, perfect. That was perfect. So now let's talk about you, back to you as an entrepreneur. You talked about your building your business into an 8-figure business. So what key strategies or philosophies helped you scale to that point? I believe that will be helpful to the audience.
Yeah. So what I would say is you can't achieve anything by yourself. You need to have an incredible team and you need to have incredible partners. In my case, I had all those things, right? I had a great business partner who was fantastic at sales and business development. So the partner that I had was great. He went out and helped us get more client partners, right? So we had great clients. So a great partner, great clients. And then ultimately we had great clients. We were able to attract a great team. And that team was able to really help bring that vision to life and continue to bring that vision to life, 20 years later. So ultimately, I think what it comes down to, back to Lego blocks or ingredients or whatever metaphor we want to use, is what it comes down to is, I think, having a really clear vision, making sure that you do what you're going to say you're going to do. I can't tell you, Peter, the number of companies that I've worked with that make a promise and they never deliver on it. Right? Think about how many times you went out, you bought something, whether it's on Amazon or at a real retail store or whatever it is, and they oversold you and they underdelivered. So I think what I've always tried to do is I've always tried to like underpromise and overdeliver. And my team does the same thing. And I think sometimes, let's be honest, right? Sometimes we overpromise and then we have to overdeliver. And that's when shit gets really, really hard, right? So I think it's easy for me to sit here on the show with you and be like, here's all the things I did right. The reality here for you and the audience is like, I fucked up a lot of shit over the years, right? And I had to work a lot of late nights and weekends because I promised something that I probably shouldn't have promised, right? Just because I wanted to look good or I wanted to look smart.
Yeah.
But when you make that promise, you got to deliver on it. So I think that that's the thing I would just say is like, how do you scale any business? You know the customers that you want, and then when you get those customers, you got to treat them like gold, and you got to make sure that they get everything that you say that you're going to get, and then they're going to be more likely to refer you to somebody else. And I would say no matter what your business is, whether it's a physical product, a digital service, or in my case, an agency, at the end of the day, all you have is your reputation, and your reputation is typically driven by word of mouth. I can do all those great fancy Instagram ads we just talked about for Lovesac a few minutes ago, but the truth of the matter is what matters most is referral, right? If you and I have a relationship and I delivered for you, Peter, and someone comes to you and goes, "Hey, Peter, like I'm trying to grow this business. Do you know anybody that does branding or marketing?" And you're like, "Yeah, call my friend Pete, or call my agency Pete, because he's done these particular things over at Digital Surgeons." So I think it sounds so stupid. People are hearing that being like, "No, duh." But then I go into businesses that are 10 years old and I look at what's their word of mouth strategy and they don't have one. Or I look at, what's their reputation and they're not aware of what people are saying when they're not in the room. And ultimately, like I always tell people, your brand is the space you occupy in the heart, mind, and wallet of people. And it's what they say about you when you're not in the room. So that's the thing where people fuck it up. People fuck up branding all the time. They think that branding is pretty fonts, colors, and pictures and nice design. And that couldn't be further from the truth, right? Like brand is the amalgamation of all the different things that people think, feel, and do about you. So that's where like I spent a lot of my time having to educate, because I myself got it wrong, right? When I was a 19-year-old kid, like I didn't know shit about branding, right? I was like, oh, that looks cool, or that's like shiny and works pretty well. But I didn't know the underlying principles. So what I think is important for people now, if they're getting into this space or if they've been in it for a while like me, is go back to those principles, go back to those core things that make things what they are today. So I hope that's helpful.
Very, very, very helpful. So another issue people have with scaling is they get to a point, because there's this thing they say that what got you here won't get you there. So they get to a point and they plateau because they don't know how to get to the next point. Well, you've gotten from the 0 to the 8-figure point. So what difficulties did you have getting across those different points, and how did you surmount them?
Yeah. So a couple things I want to just talk about is, let's talk about all the things I got wrong, because the more you do things the wrong way, the harder it is to undo them and to unlearn them. Right. So what I think that people have to realize is that there's a simple problem that happens with a lot of businesses in terms of like reaching points of scale. And it always comes down to the people running the business are the business. And when you're spending too much of your time as a business owner working in the business versus on the business, you then become a bottleneck, right? And I see this happen where like from 0 to 10 people, I was a bottleneck, and then I hired somebody else, and then we went from 10 to 20 people, and then they became a bottleneck, and then 20 to 30 people, and then more people became bottlenecks. You have to look for friction and bottlenecks in the journey. The business that I'm in, unfortunately, the agency business is not really a scalable business. What I mean by that specifically is the only way to really disproportionately scale your revenue is to also scale your expenses, because it's a very people intensive business, right? It's not like software as a service or another business that has a higher multiple on profit margin, right? I see some software as a service companies that have a 90% profit margin. Because if you build a product and it's a great product and people love it, and you go get another 1,000 customers because of the cloud and technology today, that business will almost infinitely scale. Now, granted, you need more customer success people and you need more, cloud services and bug testing, but that scales a lot differently than like say an agency or say a local pizzeria that can only have so many people in the kitchen at once, right? Making a pizza. I only have one pizza oven. So if I want to do another 50 pizzas an hour, I either need another pizza oven, which won't fit in my current space or whatever. So just to use an example, right? So for me, I think I fell into the trap myself of like building the business around me, right? And in the early days, like my ego got in the way. I'll be honest. Like I wanted to be valuable, right? Like I was a shy kid growing up. So like I wanted to be valuable for people. And so they would call me and I was like the fixer, right? It's like, hey, Pete, can you help us fix this business problem? Hey, Pete, we were the digital surgeons, right? And it was like, shit, I enjoyed helping people solve their problems. I enjoyed helping entrepreneurs grow their businesses. So then what that does is that gets you hot off your own supply. So then the thing that I love to do, the more that I did it, the more that I realized, well, if I keep doing it and I don't have other people doing it, they're always going to call Pete and expect Pete to fix it. And then when Pete starts trying to refer them to other people on my team, they want to work with Pete. It wasn't because I was better than my team at all. In fact, actually, I always hire people who are smarter than me, right? But it was because of just what that looks like. So I think most business owners get in their own way. And then when they plateau, what they do is they go try to do new shit. So I like to think of things in a very simple way, which is like, what are the things that are working and how do I double down on that? So like, how do I do more of those things, right? Then of the things I'm doing, how do I do the things I'm doing better, right? So incremental growth, right? Better, better, better. And then once you've done all the shit you can do and you've maxed that out and you've gotten as great as you can get at it, then do new stuff. My challenge is I've got ADHD. My co-founder had ADHD. So we would both, we would have the flavor of the week, which is like some new technology comes out. Oh, AI or this or that shiny object, right? So I think the problem is when you're ADHD, we chase the next shiny object. When as early in my journey, where we really fucked up is that we were basically building the business based on us, right? Like my co-founder was this super charismatic, smart guy, strategic as hell, but also a great business developer, right? He could sell water to a well. I didn't have an appreciation for business development. Number one skill that you need as a business owner is the ability to sell yourself and your company. Hands down. It took me 15 years to learn that hard lesson, right? I thought that the most important thing was my hard skills of being a really talented programmer or designer. And those are important things, right? You need to do that well. But the most important thing is you need the ability to acquire customers, right? Because your business is going to be like a roller coaster. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. Your ability to sell and bring on new customers is ultimately the most important thing. Because like I said, scale comes down to like, you need to keep the mouths fed, right? In our business, we'd finish a project, client's super happy. Not all projects are retained. They don't keep coming back, right? So it's one of those things where the pizza restaurant could have 1,000 customers, right? But if they're not coming back, every day, every week, whatever, to buy pizza, doesn't matter how many customers you have, you're going to be out of business. You're going to be throwing out all the food in your fridge and not having any margin, right? So I use the pizza example because we've all been to a pizza restaurant and it's just an easy one, but it's the same thing in my business, right? I've got a lot of salaries, a lot of employees, got to keep those mouths fed. So what's the most important thing to keep those mouths fed? Keep work coming in the door. Keep active things happening in a service-based business. And that could be whether I'm a gym or, with members or an accounting company, or I'm a law firm or I'm a digital agency, which is what I am. Right. So that's the biggest mistake I'd say is like, we would keep trying to do new shit when really we just needed to double down on the stuff that was already working. And that's ultimately where I think business people get tripped up, is that they think that when something stops working, they should move on to something different, when really what you should do is look at what is working and just double down like crazy on that. So I hope that's helpful. That's sort of, I share that because that's my story and my journey. And it's a mistake that I made over and over again, that now it's such a hard mistake to undo. Why is it hard to undo? Because I've got great people on my team. It's hard to retrain them. It's so much harder to unlearn than it is to learn. So that's what I would say just in that point. And I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, that does, and it's really helpful because one reason I started having guests on the show is when you share these experiences, you share these stories, you share these failures, they are really relatable to the listeners, and they are things that they can always identify with because we all go through basically the same journey at the end of the day. Yeah. So you mentioned AI while we were talking about. So what are your thoughts on AI in the marketing space and generally in the business space?
You got to make that question a little bit smaller. We're going to be here for 6 hours.
All right. So your thoughts on AI in the marketing space?
Awesome. Well, I'll go big and then I'll go small. So first off, AI and technologies like ChatGPT and large language models are the single greatest technological innovation that I think any of us have ever experienced in our lifetime. In my opinion, they're going to be bigger than the internet. In my opinion, at scale, they're going to be more important than electricity. Seriously. So let's unpack that, right? So first, I'm going to use ChatGPT because everybody knows about it. But when I say ChatGPT, what I want the audience to know is I'm referring to large language model technologies. There's a million of them out there, right? You got Claude, you got Palm. Everyone's got a large language model. You're going to see much, much more large language models pop up. But just for this discussion, I'll say Chat GPT in air quotes, but my audience knows, wink, wink, we're talking about large language models. So what the hell is a large language model, right? Let's keep it simple. Your ability to pop text into a prompt and have the computer go and generate things from that text. It's like autocomplete on steroids, right? You can get answers to questions. You can repurpose content. There's so many different things that you can do with these things, right? So again, if you haven't used ChatGPT yet, definitely check it out. If you're already using it, I continue to challenge you to think about what are some better prompts that you can ask it. I would say with prompts, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? The better the prompt, the better the output. The better the output, the better the outcome, right? So I think if you're looking for an easy way out, AI and ChatGPT is not your answer. If you're looking for a way to 10x or 100x your people, you can accelerate the shit out of your company's growth using these technologies and tools, because what they allow you to do is work faster, better, stronger in a way that's transformative to your organization. So we're using ChatGPT and tools like ChatGPT for everything. I'll give you a perfect example. I used to have someone that would sit on calls, my assistant, and would take notes and then would follow up with action items. That process is now completely automated, right? So here's the reality. AI is not coming for your job, but someone using AI is, right? So now, instead of my assistant having to join every call and waste half of his day being in meetings, now my assistant's able to take the AI notes and the AI action items and actually work on getting the work done. So now the amount of work that he does, which is more interesting work for him. I mean, who wants to sit on a call and take notes? Nobody, right? But now what he's able to do is turn those notes, turn those conversations into content, turn those conversations into learning frameworks for my team, turn those conversations into other things that are going to create value. And that value is what creates leverage. And that leverage is what creates growth in your organization. So I think, again, these tools and technologies let you do so many different things that were not possible even 12 months ago. So that's just like the sort of simple version of it, in my opinion.
Interesting. Interesting. So so we're still talking about technology. So in managing your business, in managing your personal routine and everything, what's your favorite, not piece of technology, but your favorite technology stack? What are those things you use every day?
Well, I mean, like softwares, what's
software, apps, and things like that.
Oh, sure. So I think, well, one, I haven't had a day go by where I don't use ChatGPT since the day it came out. I'll be honest. I use it every day. I use it for meal prep and planning. I use it for, helping to frame pros and cons on different decisions I make. I use it for content ideas, for rewriting bad content, fixing my terrible grammar. So that's ChatGPT. I cover that. I get a lot of email as a business owner, and even though I have an assistant who checks my email and helps me parse it out, I still have to respond to a lot of it myself because it's uniquely to me. And no matter how many frameworks or repeatable things that they have, there's some that just require the human touch. I use a tool called Superhuman. Superhuman's an email program. It sort of sits on top of Gmail or Microsoft or whatever. It's called Superhuman. I love that tool. Use it religiously every single day. They've got mobile app as well as a desktop app. As stupid as this is going to sound, is like Chrome browser, right? We all use it, but like I say it stupidly because it's like so much information is available to you in the blink of an eye from a search perspective, right? I mean, obviously, again, these are obvious ones, but I'd say like I use so many different tools to win. I'm using Fathom right now. It's a digital note taker. Fathom's an AI note taker. Right now, it's free. It's incredible. Obviously in my business, my team does a lot of branding and design and strategy. So, we couldn't operate without tools like Notion and Figma. Notion's sort of like our wiki in the cloud where all our information goes. I mean, obviously Figma is our design software, where we pull different things together. For things like podcasts, we have a podcast that we work on. We use a tool called Cast Magic. We use different, there's a million different tools. What I would say to the audience is like, if y'all are looking to understand more about the tools that I use, like just check me out on Medium. I write about this stuff all the time. It's 100% free. And just like, I talk about what I love and hate about different tools and technologies. I mean, if I look at my taskbar right now on my computer on the bottom, it's like, there's a million different tools that are in my taskbar. that I use every single day. And then for every one of those actual software programs, I've got like a dozen cloud programs. Last I checked, I think we spend like over $50,000 a month on like SaaS technologies, like over 50K a month on just tech. And I'm just talking like from Adobe to Figma, which technically they're the same company now, but they're separate bills, to Notion, to ChatGPT, to Zapier, right? We love Zapier because Zapier lets you string together different technologies, right?
Yeah.
We use ClickUp for project management. I mean, so it's like I could just go down the list. I mean, what I always say is there's a tool for every job, just like there's an ass for every seat. So we have to understand like what tools are going to be the best tool for the job that we're doing. I use Miro a lot, Miro, because now that we're sort of remote first as a company, we've got people all over the world. We don't have the benefit of just always coming together at a physical whiteboard, right? I think we live in this post-COVID world. Everything's digital first, right?
Yeah.
So how do we collaborate real time in the different files? So we use Miro. We've replaced PowerPoint and Keynote with tools like pitch.com lets us sort of build decks and stories together at the same time, wherever we are in the world. So I think what you'll notice about all these tools, what they have in common is how do they help us collaborate faster? How do they help us connect more meaningfully, and how they help us express ourselves? So hopefully that's one thing is like, why do I use Superhuman? Because it lets me get through my email a lot faster. I got shortcuts and that sort of thing. Why do I use tools like Figma and Miro? It lets us collaborate and share ideas very, very quickly in real time. I don't have to send you a file, you open it, send it back and forth, play ping pong. It's not about ping pong anymore, in my opinion. It's about bringing us together to connect more meaningfully.
Interesting. That's a lot of tools, and I'm sure a lot of us will pick one or two or more than that will be useful in our daily workflows. So, one other thing, if you look back at your journey, say you have about 20 years of experience in this, and if you were to go back in time and tell your younger self, your 20-year-old self something, what would you tell them? What's one thing you tell them?
The journey is the destination, not the destination is the journey.
Interesting. So enjoy every bit of the journey.
Well, I wouldn't say it's enjoy every piece of the journey. I'll be honest with you, because I think that that's bullshit. I think that I talk to a lot of young people that are thinking about what to do with their lives and careers and that sort of thing. And I think that it's not all rainbows and sunshine. Right. Yeah. And I think that like, if you want to have the things that the Kardashians have, the private jets, the bling bling, all that kind of stuff, if you want that, you got to work for that. And I think the reality is that we get caught up in the rose colored glasses that is Instagram and TikTok. And I don't think what we realize is that everything that these people have, whether it's the celebrities or the uber rich or whatever it is, like if that's what you want, I'm not saying that's what everybody wants. I have some friends who are, happy, like living in the woods, just working enough to live, not living to work. Right. So I think your journey is your journey. You got to understand what that journey is, but just understand that you have to right size your wants to your effort. And that's a big thing that I say. So when I say like the advice for my younger self is I've never had a work ethic problem. You know what I mean? I've always got up and went to work and got my shit done. When I'm talking to younger people now, I think what I'm struggling to get across to them is that it's not as easy as just making a couple videos and now someone's going to pay me, like Mr. Beast on YouTube, right? Who makes millions and millions of dollars a year, right? It's like, you got to grind and you got to hustle. If that's what you want, let's be clear. Let's be very, very clear. Like, know where you want to get to, and then understand that like, it's going to require a lot of effort to do that. And why I say like really respect and appreciate that journey is because I got caught up when I was younger on like the next thing, right? Like, when am I going to get that next car? Right. And I got that car. Then I was like, okay, it's the hedonic treadmill. It just keeps spinning. Right. I wanted to get that nice car. I got the nice car. I wanted to get that nice house. I got the nice house. I wanted to get this next thing. I got the next thing. And what ends up happening is when you keep chasing the next thing, as opposed to being present with what you are right now, and that's where meditation has really changed my life for the better, is like when you keep chasing the next thing, you find yourself empty. And, again, I think it was a philosopher famously said, comparison is the theft of joy. Right. And what I mean by that is the more we compare ourselves to ourselves, oh, I can't lift as much weight as I used to lift anymore. Well, do I really need to bench 350 pounds like I used to 10 years ago? No. Is it okay that I could bench 300 pounds now? Who cares, right? I'm using that as a stupid example. I got caught up in my head about that, right? Do I really need to care that I can't, do this sport the way that I used to? Well, is that really important to my life anymore, right? So I think comparisons is the thief of joy, and understanding that the journey that you're on is what you have to love, right? If you don't love what you do, it's going to be really hard work. But you got to understand, I don't want to gas people up and talk bullshit. Is like, there's days I get up and I'm like, I look at my calendar and I'm like, I don't want to do any of this today. Right. But then like, I look at my wallpaper and my background's a picture of my wife and my kid. And I'm like, that's why I'm doing this. Right. Because I've built a life for us that I want to continue to maintain. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, sure. Could I like leave this all behind, sell all these companies and probably not need to work anymore? Sure. But I like nice things, right? I like my brand new Tesla. I like the different toys that I've accumulated for myself, right? That's not what drives me. That's not my why, but those things come at a cost, right? So I think ultimately you got to understand, what do you want? And are you willing to do the work to get there? And that's why I say like the advice to my younger self is like, when I was younger, it was like, oh, when I get that thing, I'll be happy. And that was a misnomer, right? Like, oh, when I just start making $100,000 a year, I'll be happy. Oh, when I just start making $200,000 a year, I'll be happy. Oh, when I have $1 million in the bank, I'll be happy. And then when you cross every one of those milestones, and I've done that, then you realize, you know what? It's not the things that make you happy. It's the experiences and the people and the relationships that really make you happy. And that's where, like, not to get all philosophical on you, but that's like where it's like I'm old now, right? Most people I mess with like are like much younger than me, right? Like I just cracked 40 a couple months ago. I'm talking to cats who were like 17, 18, just starting businesses now, right? I'm talking to kids who are 21 and they're tired. They're like, oh my God, I've been grinding so hard for 2 years. I'm like, you've been grinding for 2 years? Add a 0 on that, bro. Like, if you don't love this grind, understand it ain't going to get easier. The grind is the grind. So that's the thing I wanted to say, like, real talk, no bullshit for the audience. Like, I don't want to come on and be this like, guru, whatever. Like, the reality is I love what I do, but it's a grind. And there are amazing, incredible days. And that's the price of entry. That is the price of entry. Like, you don't get I just went to a Post Malone concert recently. It was, and just seeing him on stage and like the grind and how hard he works. Right. And that's the price of entry, right? Getting hurt, falling down, having people attack you on all these different channels. That's the price of entry, right? But then when he put the microphone in his hand, and he was talking about his new kid, you saw how happy he was. It was like a different person, right? Talking about his kid. So for those of us that have kids or maybe bigger purpose, those things snap you and wake you up to like what's really important. And what's really important is not figuring out how to get people to buy more sofas and pizzas. What's really important is figuring out what is the reason you do what you do and how do you keep doing it in a way that's going to be right for you, because your story and your journey is your story. It's not my story and my journey. So I hope that's helpful, Peter, to you and the audience.
Extremely helpful. Extremely. I think there's a lot we'll be able to pick up from this chat. So as we get to the end, is there anything you'd like to share with us? Maybe something I've not touched and something that you feel the audience would like to get value from knowing?
That's a good one. Nothing comes to mind right now, I'll be honest. What I would say is, again, just encourage the audience. Like, I'm active on Twitter or X. I hate that Elon rebranded it to X, but I'm active on Twitter. I'm active on Medium. I'm pretty easy to find on social media. If anybody has any questions or curiosities, I'm happy to point them to different things. I'm not here to sell you anything.
That's all right. So those are these things. So your Twitter, your Medium, how do they reach you on those platforms?
Yeah, sure. So it's just at Pete Sena on both the platforms, PETESENA. And then if you just Google me, I'm on, PeteSena.com. I'm on Pete Sena on Twitter. I'm in Pete Sena on Medium. I'm Pete Sena on LinkedIn. And in most places. My IG handle is Pete's Lens. It's a weird handle. Pete Sena wasn't available when I was signing up for it years ago, which is a bummer. So damn you, other Pete Sena. But yeah, pretty easy to find, and hope to hear from some folks. Again, what I would say to the audience is like, if you found this valuable, like what I would just say is like, let me know what and why, because I deeply appreciate the feedback. I want to be here for people who don't know what the next steps in their journey are. Like, I wish I had a mentor when I was 19, 20, 21, 31. I didn't have one. So I'm out here doing this because I just want to help entrepreneurs find the things that they want to do and get to the things they want to do. So
Interesting. And really, really good. So all those links will be in the show notes once this goes live. So the audience can easily reach you, learn more from you, because we've already learned a lot, and I'm sure we've just had maybe less than an hour. So definitely there's a lot more where that's coming from. So thank you so much for coming on the show with us today.
And, great being here. Thanks so much. Appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. And for the listeners, thank you for being with us up to this point on the show. I'm sure you've picked up a lot from this episode. If you've not picked up anything, you probably the ACT audience, communication, and trigger or touch points. Pick that up. Pick up any of the things you've learned from here. And until next week, when we come back with another episode of the Tech Your Business podcast, don't forget to keep taking your business. Bye for now.